De heersende ideologie, zo schreef Karl Marx in het Communistisch Manifest van 1848, is altijd de ideologie van de heersende klasse geweest. De moderne maatschappij heeft de klassentegenstellingen niet opgeheven, zij heeft slechts nieuwe klassen in plaats van de oude gesteld, die van loonarbeid en kapitaal. In dezelfde mate waarin het kapitaal zich ontwikkelt, ontwikkelt zich een klasse van moderne arbeiders die alleen kunnen leven als zij arbeid vinden en die alleen arbeid vinden als hun arbeid het kapitaal vermeerdert. In haar behoefte aan steeds meer afzet voor producten jaagt het kapitaal over de gehele aardbol. Overal moet zij zich binnendringen en overal dwingt zij een zogenaamde nieuwe beschaving af, de beschaving van de vrije markt. Zo schept het kapitaal zich een wereld naar haar eigen beeld. Het gaat goed met de wereld. De Dow Jones-index breekt het ene record na het andere. De jaarcijfers van multinationals slaan alle voorgaande. De economiepagina's van de dagbladen zijn gevuld met foto's van vergenoegd lachende heren in driedelig donkergrijs. Elders in de bladen maken de koppen melding van inkrimping en sluiting van bedrijven. Toenemende werkeloosheid in Duitsland, sterker wordend rechtsnationalisme in Frankrijk, Italië en Oostenrijk, regionale conflicten op de Balkan, Rusland, Afrika en Zuidoost-Azië, bloeddorstig religieus extremisme in de Arabische wereld en bomaanslagen in de Verenigde Staten, het mekka van de vrije markt. En dat terwijl het leek dat de wereld door middel van MTV, CNN, Coca-Cola, McDonald's en Nike één aan het worden was. Deze paradox vormde voor de Amerikaanse politicoloog Benjamin Barber de aanleiding tot het schrijven van een boek getiteld Jihad versus McWorld.
McWorld is about modernization, westernization, the homogenization of the world, the export of Western culture, of Hollywood, of Madison Avenue, of Silicon Valley to the rest of the world. And jihad is how the rest of the world has responded to the economic and cultural imperialism of McWorld. So in a certain sense, we can say McWorld has generated jihad. The thing they have in common that is most devastating is that neither jihad nor McWorld have any interest in civil society, in citizenship, or in democracy. So that together, the two of them corrupt and undermine the foundations of our civil life and of our democratic life, and that they share in common. I think it's well known, and few people disagree, that terrorism, tribal war, cultural disintegration are bad for democracy. Most people would say, well, yes, that's so. But on the other side, I think most people would argue that global capitalism, free trade, commercial markets are good for democracy. In fact, in Western Europe and the United States, there are many politicians and economists who say they're the same thing. If you get a new free market, you've got democracy. It's one and the same thing. And a lot of people say because Russia now has wild capitalism and free markets, it must be democratic, because the two go hand in hand. That, I think, is the most dangerous mythology of the new world in which we live. We cannot produce ecological safety. We cannot produce fair labor standards through a privatized market. Markets are not designed to do that. They're designed to feed the needs and desires and wants of individual consumers. And the problem is, in the West now, we have made the assumption that the free market can give us everything we want and everything we cherish.
We've been talking about General Motors and downsizing. I'd like to ask you this question. What happened to the American dream? Where did it go? You know, there was a time in Flint, Michigan, where we had the highest per capita household income of any city in the United States of America. Now, what's happened to that? Where did it go? Now they're saying to us, hey, you know, the retirement programs may not be around. Fringe benefits are being eroded. Real wages have stagnated or gone down. What's happened to the American dream? What happened to the dream that said if you work hard and do a good job, the company will look after you and take care of you and make sure that your family has food on the table and that your kids have access to a college education? Instead, now we have people working 2 or 3 jobs. And the company made $7 billion in after-tax profits.
As you can see, many stores are still closed after many, many years. Flint is a company town of predominantly of General Motors workers, and through the years we've lost close to 40,000 auto workers. Currently we have about 42,000 auto workers that work in the Flint area. And the prospects of Flint doesn't look that good in the future.
So how come are the factories moving out, or are they becoming smaller?
Yeah, the General Motors has continued to outsource jobs here in Flint, and
what's outsourcing?
That's taking our jobs that we've done traditionally and taking them to smaller factories outside the city. It's for lower wages, where we would be paid $18 an hour in the factory. The major factory, they outsource it to smaller factories for $6 or $7 an hour. A lot of them are working 2 or 3 jobs just to sustain a living.
How do you mean 2 or 3 jobs?
We don't have, it seems like more and more jobs today are in the service sector, and those are a part-time job, and so they don't pay that well, but to sustain a living they have to work 2 or 3 different jobs. Straight up ahead is what you call the Durant Hotel. That was built years ago, and it was quite a famous hotel during the 30s and 40s, but has been vacant for many, many years. In fact, in this country, the biggest employer today, it's these temporary services, manpower, Kelly Services. It's really frustrating that our society is even allowing that, because when you see the huge profits made by the corporations in this country, and it's not passed down to the workers that are making those profits for them, it can be very, very frustrating. And people don't know what to look. They don't know where to look for the answers.
So what's the poverty rate in this town?
Well, they gave a statistic 2 years ago that 45% of the children live in poverty, and so I think that gives an indication of what it's like here in Flint.
If you worked hard, your company did well, you would prosper. Seems fair enough. But what happens now? You work hard, your company does well, you get a pink slip, you go on unemployment, your unemployment runs out, you get 6 months of welfare, and you're out on the street. That's the tragedy. $7 billion in after-tax profits last year, and General Motors says we must right-size. Don't believe that word, right-size. There's nothing right about it.
Laying off people, downsizing is certainly a way that General Motors and other corporations make huge profits because they'll lay off from the bigger factories, and then they'll, like I say, outsource to other communities outside and pay half the wages is what they did. So it drives everybody's standard of living down, everybody except for the CEO and certainly the other vice presidents that make up General Motors. Their salaries have increased 250 times what the line worker is. They only care about profit, and they don't care about people, and that's what the significance of unions are, that they are supposed to stand up for the worker agenda. And when we get away from looking out for the individual workers, then our unions really become insignificant to the workers, and that's what some of the problems are today, that our unions have become too cozy with a corporation, and they have the same agenda of being
But how come? Because they believe in the economic philosophy or so?
I would say, looking at the history back in the late 70s, the union saw that there was a real challenge to the foreign vehicles that were coming into this country and the economic downturn, and instead of fighting it and mobilizing the membership, they chose the easy way out, and that was to join with a corporation and to deal with it that way.
Every time we lose a GM job, it affects 4 other jobs. When we lose manufacturing in this community, it affects the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Everybody is affected. It goes much more deep than just the manufacturing job itself. I think it's a tragedy, too, that we give McDonald's Corporation, the government, $1.6 million to study chicken McNuggets in Singapore. 251-WFDF, 251-9333.
I'm in a unique situation right now, is that just a week, well, it was 2 weeks ago, they announced that the engineering facility that I'm at will be consolidating with others down in Detroit, and so it looks like I'll be downsized out of my job within 2 years. Here on the left is a new jail that was just completed a couple of years ago, and they had to build a new jail because The overpopulation of the older jail, which you can see off right behind it, that's the old jail. And it's, even with the new capacity, it's still overfilled.
Hey, you Bobby, DSPG? Are you buying any? We're up 100? Up 100 hit the bid? Up to 100? Are you buying any? You're not buying any.
You did 14.5. I'm working 10. 4 systems.
We know we live in an age that started in America with Ronald Reagan and continues now with Herbert Kohl and in England and on the continent with Chirac, an age of anti-government passion. People distrust what they call the professional political elites, the professional political classes. They distrust government. They distrust their own democratic institutions, which might be used to control and regulate. McWorld. So at the very moment when we most need democratic institutions to help us restore confidence in public goods and in the commonweal, there is a political ideology afoot that opposes government regulation. That's very convenient for the corporations of McWorld, because in effect they can say, well, it's not our fault, but people don't want government interfering. President Clinton said last year, it's the end of the era of big government. He did not say it's also the end of the era of big business. If big government steps down and big business stays where it is, then big business replaces big government as the controller of our lives.
So where's your wife now?
She's at work.
She works at night?
Yes, she's third shifter.
Does she work from?
I think it's 10 to 6:30 in the morning. Because where she's at, they don't get a paid lunch. So other than that, it'd be, what, 10 to 6 instead of 6:30. And she'd probably be home right about now.
Because she drives home. How long does she drive home?
About 70, 75-minute ride one way.
Right. So you wake up your daughter and give her breakfast?
Yeah, I get her up and get her off for school. And sometimes she'll have breakfast, most of the time she won't.
And when your wife comes home and she goes to bed?
Yes. Or if she feels like maybe doing laundry, if she's not that tired, she might start something in the morning, but usually she goes to bed and waits till the afternoon.
What time?
I usually leave here about 1:30. 1:30, depends on what I'm feeling like.
What happens to the girl?
When she gets out of school, Debbie will be up with her, and when Debbie gets ready to go to work, she drops her off at the babysitter. And when I get out, I'll pick her up.
So what time do you return?
I usually get home, here's probably a little after 12.
But then your wife is gone again?
Yes.
So you only meet
We talk for a few minutes in the morning, and she calls me at work, or either I call her here. And that's how we usually keep our communications over the telephone. That's true.
So when do you really meet? In the weekends?
Yes, the weekends, well, usually Sundays, because she gets to work a lot of Saturdays. Ain't it? She wants to, she's kind of forced to it. And if I can get to Saturdays, I'll take them too. But at my plant, we're not getting the overtime now. So mainly it's Sunday evening. Saturday is really her time because Sunday night she starts her shift back up. So her Sunday is our Saturday, so usually, you know, Saturday night, if I don't get to work, is when we get to spend our weekend together.
Good morning. Good roads today. Oh, glad to be home. It was a long night. Oh, Buzz. Hi.
I'm trying to keep them under control.
Okay.
Okay, you can have one.
Morning.
How's your night?
Good. No accidents on the highway coming home. I made it a pretty good time today.
Stick
I was
around.
getting
Okay.
ready to
Go ahead.
unwind here.
Want a cup of coffee, babe?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I just got some fresh one made.
Okay. Grab a cup. The dogs are being good.
Well, partially.
Okay.
So you must be tired.
Yeah, well, no, because I'm fired up because I have 2 days off. I'm free of work for a few days.
Do you often have the weekend off?
We usually only get 1 weekend a month to have Saturday and Sunday. Now I have to work 2 Saturdays to earn a third Saturday off. So we're working 3 Saturdays a month, and then we get 5 days off, which is the 4 Sundays and the 1 Saturday. But they want you to be in there on those days. I had my supervisor approach me to work Saturday, and I said no, and then she came back an hour later and said, would you like to work Sunday? And I said no. She said, would you like to come in early Sunday night, which is my Monday on third, 4 hours? And I said no. I would like to have some time off with the family. So there's this pressure to be in there every day. Now his plant's just the opposite. They're not getting overtime. They're getting ready to close that plant down.
Getting to close that plant down?
They're going to close the Kalamazoo plant down, yes.
At least that's what they're talking. They've been telling us that now for, what, 3, almost 4 years. But from the way things are looking, it looks like it just might happen. There's hardly anybody there now. It's like working in a great big ghost town. You can hear all the little fans that you never even realized was in the ceiling. I've been there 20 years. Didn't even know a lot of them fans were up there. Now you can hear them running because there's nothing running in there.
Have you been moving around a lot?
Yes, I've been in 4 General Motors plants. I was in Kalamazoo from June of 77 to October of 80, and then I had to go 30 miles south to Three Rivers, Michigan, where I built transmissions, and I was laid off there in 1987 on a Friday, and on Monday they told me, you will be in Fort Wayne, Indiana if you want to keep your job, or you can be laid off. I had that quick of a notice for my job, and I was driving 120 miles to work one way and working 10-hour shifts. So that was more of a rush than what I'm going through right now. I was on like 15, 16-hour days when I worked down there.
So must be stressful on a relation.
Yeah, we almost got divorced over the move to Fort Wayne because I just was never home, and we kind of drifted apart because I was gone working 15, 16 hours a day, and then when I got home I went to sleep, and you know, I wouldn't have time to see Al, and then he was working 6 and 7 days a week, so we just didn't have time for each other. We just drifted apart. And I worked hard to get back to Michigan, and just 3 days before the divorce was supposed to be final, we said, let's try to make it work. We got this child that really wants it to work, and we're not going to let this company ruin our lives. And I believe in the General Motors system, the divorce rate's like 65%. Because of all the moving. And I feel fortunate that I've only had to move 4 times, where a lot of people in Flint have had to move 7 and 8 times. Every time we saw each other, we were arguing, and we were so stressed out because we became workaholics. We lost our position and purpose in life. You go to work to support your family, and it became to the point where work became our life. And we were forced to be put in that situation because we had to work to keep our home, and you were forced to work overtime. You were forced to drive. Alan had to drive an hour to Kalamazoo because and then I had the longer drive to Fort Wayne. But you just get to the point where you say, is it worth it? And then this child, luckily this child, made us say, hey, she needs mom, she needs dad, She's an only child, and let's try to make it work for her. And she was very happy that we decided to...
And it was 3 days before you would go to court?
The final 3 days, yeah.
Were you happy?
Very. He showed up at the doorstep, and I'm like, yes, I'm glad you're back.
Do you really have to fight to stay on the job? I mean, they're laying off many people.
Yeah, it's frightening because, you know, you just never know what they're going to do next. And you're never secure. We had a speech from our plant manager just the night before last about how we have to become more profitable. If General Motors does not receive a 10% profit in your division, then you're either going to be sold, you're going to be closed, or you're going to become a joint venture with another company. So this threat of job security is there. I mean, you never go to work feeling safe. And it's really created a hostile environment because everybody is worried about their jobs and worried about their families, and they don't care about the next person. They're just out to keep themselves afloat. And that's what's frightening about America. And in the bigger cities, a lot of those people aren't even employed, so they live on the streets. So there's another war going on there. And then it works its way right down to the children because the parents are both working and the children are being raised by babysitters. And as they get older and they can get out, then they join gangs and then they get in trouble. I'm going to get some rest.
I'll be quiet if I can.
Good night.
Good night, babe.
This thing is getting hit hard. If you want to do 5 and an 8 or 10 and 8.
We have just emerged from a period of political totalitarianism, where a political ideology in the communist world pervaded every aspect of society. But we seem to be transitioning into a kind of economic consumer totalitarianism, where every aspect of society is now dominated by privatism, by commerce, and by consumption. And that is just as repressive of diversity, of pluralism, as the old political totalitarianism was. But I just want to say it's a little more dangerous, though, because with political totalitarianism, you recognize the enemy. You feel oppressed. You can feel the hard manacles, the handcuffs. You can feel the bars behind which you sit. But in the mall, you feel free. You feel like you're making choices. Oh, I'm a free man here. The chains of the market are invisible, are comfortable, and for that reason are much more dangerous.